The year was 210 BC. On the horizon of the Western Pacific, a formidable Qin Dynasty Armada, a forest of multi-decked tower ships, carved through the salt spray, carrying the desperate ambitions of an emperor and the fate of 3,000 souls. At the helm stood Jofuku, the preeminent imperial alchemist, a man entrusted with a mission that bordered on the divine. To secure the Elixir of Immortality for Qin Shi Huang, the world's most powerful sovereign. Accompanying him was an elite contingent of craftsmen representing 100 specialized trades and an army of young boys and girls. They sailed into the unknown, and then they vanished. This disappearance is not merely a footnote in the annals of the Qin Empire, it is the genesis of East Asia's most enduring cultural and historical enigma. For 2 millennia, the legend has persisted that Jofuku did not succumb to the waves, but instead made landfall on the rugged shores of Japan. There, he is whispered to be the architect of a new age, the progenitor of Japanese agricultural civilization, and perhaps the biological ancestor of the modern Japanese people. This narrative has sparked centuries of fierce academic debate and ignited the imaginations of storytellers across the continent. Beyond the romanticism of ancient mysticism, the voyage of Jofuku serves as a vital key to understanding the early ripples of human migration and the fusion of civilizations in the East. By sifting through the dust of historical fragments and the echoes of mythology, we can begin to reconcile the vastly different lenses through which Chinese and Japanese scholars view this event. More importantly, we now stand at a technological precipice where folklore meets hard science. Through the lens of ancient human paleogenomics and the cold, data-driven logic of molecular biology, we can finally address a century-old question. Does the blood of ancient China truly flow through the veins of modern Japan? The backdrop of this odyssey was one of unprecedented power and profound terror. In 221 BC, Qin Shi Huang had forged a unified empire from the chaos of the 7 warring states, achieving a feat of secular dominance that seemed immortal. Yet, as he sat upon his zenith, the emperor became haunted by the one enemy he could not conquer: time. To defy the natural law of decay, he turned to the Fangxi, a class of occult practitioners, astrologers, and alchemists who claimed to possess the secrets of the gods. Jofuku, born in the coastal state of Qi, was a master of this craft. He understood the nuances of the emperor's psyche, his deep-seated fear of the void, and his yearning for the divine. Drawing upon deep-rooted traditions of maritime exploration, Jofuku presented a petition describing 3 celestial mountains, Penglai, Fangjiang, and Yingzhou, shimmering in the eastern mists. These were not mere metaphors, but physical destinations in the early Chinese cosmology, places where palaces were crafted from silver and gold, and where ageless celestials guarded the medicine of eternal youth. Driven by an obsession with physical immortality, the emperor sanctioned what would become the earliest state-sponsored mega-voyage in human history. It was a quest for a Chinese Elysium, an El Dorado of the East that set the stage for a migration that would forever alter the genetic and cultural map of the Pacific. Regarding Jofuku's ultimate motivations for never returning to the Qin court, a compelling escape hypothesis has long circulated within historical and intellectual circles. By the time of his second voyage, the Qin dynasty was grappling with a climate of extreme political suppression. Qin Shi Huang had initiated the burning of books and burying of scholars, a brutal campaign to purge dissenting ideologies and eliminate scholars or occultists who failed his expectations.
As a shrewd alchemist
Who had navigated the emperor's volatile temperament for years, Xu Fu likely grasped a grim reality. The Elixir of Immortality was a phantom, and finding it was a task destined for failure. To return to the capital empty-handed would be to invite a slow and agonizing execution. Thus, he utilized the emperor's own desperate greed to engineer a grand exodus under the guise of a pioneering mission. The 3,000 youths, the diverse array of craftsmen, and the vast stores of grain were not meant as offerings to sea gods, but rather as the foundational components of a self-sustaining society, a new civilization planted far beyond the reach of a tyrant's shadow. The question of where this fleet eventually anchored remained shrouded in mystery for centuries, existing only as vague whispers in scattered documents. It was not until the 10th century AD that the Chinese monk Yichu provided a definitive link, recording that Xu Fu had reached the Japanese archipelago and identified Mount Fuji as the legendary Peng Glai. This revelation acted as a cultural catalyst. Over the next millennium, Japan did not merely adopt the story, it cultivated a profound and reverent Xu Fu cult. In Japanese local legends and folklore, the figure of Xu Fu, known as Jofuku, underwent a remarkable transformation. In Shingu City, located in the Wakayama prefecture, the narrative suggests that Xu Fu discovered a specific medicinal plant, Tendai Uyaku, which he believed might be the elixir. However, enchanted by the region's mild climate and breathtaking vistas, he abandoned his mission in favor of settlement. Today, the city honors this legacy through Jofuku Park, a site featuring his tomb and monuments dedicated to his 7 most loyal disciples. The legends are no less vivid in Saga Prefecture on Kyushu Island. Folklore tells of how his fleet reached the Ariake Sea, and Xu Fu cast a cup into the waves to let fate dictate their landing spot, a place still known as Ubakai, or the Floating Cup. He is said to have ascended Mount Kinryu, discovering a plant locally called Furofuki, a linguistic echo of Furofushi, the Japanese word for immortality. Crucially, Japanese tradition does not paint Xu Fu as a deceptive con artist or a foreign invader. Instead, he is venerated as a culture hero, a Promethean figure who brought light to an archipelago then largely inhabited by Stone Age hunter-gatherers. Ancient accounts credit Xu Fu and his followers with introducing the transformative technologies of irrigation, whaling, papermaking, and silk weaving. This sudden influx of continental sophistication led to his deification as a patron god of agriculture, medicine, and textiles. Throughout Japan, particularly among followers of Shugendo mountain asceticism, his spirit is still celebrated in grand festivals every August. This deep-seated veneration reflects a subconscious acknowledgement of the debt the ancient Japanese people owed to the waves of advanced civilization that arrived from the mainland. While folklore remains deeply romanticized, modern Japanese historians and archaeologists approach the subject with a more rigorous scientific lens. However, even the hard evidence of archaeology provides undeniable support for a massive transoceanic influx of people and technology during this precise window of time. This era corresponds perfectly with the most significant leap in Japanese prehistory, the transition to the Yayoi period, circa 300 BC to 300 AD. Prior to this explosion of development, the Japanese archipelago was locked in the prolonged Jomon period, characterized by a society of hunter-gatherers, who crafted coarse, cord-marked pottery. Then, around the 3rd century BC, Japanese society underwent a sudden, radical mutation. Wet rice irrigation became widespread, bronze and iron metallurgy entered common use. Distinct social hierarchies emerged, and the population began wearing garments woven from silk and hemp. Such a profound civilizational shift was not the result of slow indigenous evolution. It was the product of a massive injection of highly developed foreign culture. Unearthed artifacts consistently bridge the link between the Yayoi explosion and the Qin Han empires. Hordes of tens of thousands of ancient coins, Han Dynasty bronze mirrors, and large ritual bronze swords, found across Kyushu and Honshu, serve as silent witnesses to this continental arrival. In the grand narrative of Chinese historiography, Shu Fu has long occupied a delicate and peripheral position. This temperature difference between the two nations' research is telling. For Chinese scholars, the lack of physical evidence within the mainland, save for the brief, satirical accounts in Sima Qian's Records of the Grand Historian, necessitates a cautious, skeptical stance. In the Chinese tradition, Shu Fu is a discontinued figure. He vanished into the eastern mists, and his actions produced no feedback on the core trajectory of Chinese dynastic succession or Confucian consolidation. In contrast, Japanese academia views Shu Fu as a master key. In the absence of their own indigenous written records from that era, his legend explains the sudden surge in agricultural and technical prowess. To Japan, he represents the origin of a national narrative. To China, he remains a dusty maritime dream, floating on the periphery of history. This brings us to the ultimate resolution provided by 21st century science. High-throughput sequencing of ancient human remains has finally allowed us to bypass the quagmire of subjective interpretation. A landmark 2021 study published in Science Advances proposed a new tripartite model for Japanese origins, identifying a significant third wave of migration from the East Asian mainland that occurred during the Kofun period. The data is startling. Up to 70% of the genetic material of modern mainland Japanese is inherited from ancient agricultural migrants, whose lineage shows an extremely high degree of homology with the modern Chinese Han population. While the Japanese are not a mere overseas branch of China, having retained a unique 35% of their indigenous Jomon paternal lineage, the core of their biological identity was indeed forged by those who crossed the sea from the Yellow and Yangtze River basins. The massive tower ships of Shu Fu may have long ago succumbed to the violent waves of the Pacific, but the spirit of exploration and the seeds of civilization he carried are immortal. They have transformed into the double helix of DNA, flowing silently in the blood of 120 million people today. This is no longer a myth of a despotic emperor seeking a miracle. It is a scientific epic of the greatest transoceanic migration and civilizational fusion in human history.